And it's my distinct pleasure today to introduce Dr. William Brown III. Dr. Brown is an associate professor of medicine, epidemiology, and biostatistics here at UCSF, and an AMIA Board Director, and was vice chair of the AMIA 2022 conference. And he's also a John A. Watson Faculty Scholar. He's the founding director of the Code Lab, director of DEI for the Bakar Computational Health Science Institute, co-director of the T32 DaTABASE program for Health Disparities Research Fellowship. He's the associate director at the Research Coordinating Center to Reduce Disparities in Multiple Chronic Diseases, the RCC RD-MCD. He's an implementation science lead for the Center for Digital Health Innovation. His research involves big data, mHealth, natural language processing, machine learning, and standards, is applied to clinical and behavioral health disparities research with underserved communities. Using community-based participatory research, he works to reduce chronic illness, such as HIV, diabetes, and opioids, and health disparities among vulnerable populations, such as African Americans, Latinos, youth, and LGBT. He also teaches and mentors graduate students, and Will is also a member of the CAPS Methods Corps, and we're very excited to have him speaking with us today regarding artificial intelligence, which is a really big and hot topic here at UCSF. So without further ado, Will, please take it away. Thanks so much for speaking with us today.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining this presentation today. Thank you, Tor, for that introduction. This can be quite a mouthful. And I'm really excited about our presentation. But today is a presentation on having a real discussion about artificial intelligence in research. And we're going to go over a few things. One, I just wanted to say that this is a presentation that we provided for the Health Equity Action Network that I teach to some of our rising star investigators, and that I wanted to share with the broader UCSF community. So we will go over some general overview of AI research, AI in research in more specific terms, and then we will discuss some of the concrete tools, and then we'll talk about some of the future presentations that are going to happen. And then maybe if we have additional time, then I will walk you through some of the tools that we have specifically at UCSF. So the objectives are to explore the advantages of using artificial intelligence in research, to discuss some of the disadvantages and challenges, and to provide examples of AI applications, and then to share some of those open source AI platforms that can specifically be applied to research. Well, the way that I like to think of AI is the same way that we think of many technologies that have continued to grow and evolve over time as tools. From the horse and buggy, now turning into the car. Now, if you live in SF, which most of us probably do, we see automated cars coming about. From the abacus to the calculator, from the typewriter to the computer, all these things are evolved tools that at one point in time were probably scary and dangerous to a lot of us, but also had a lot of promise for making life better. And in many of those real senses, both of those things have happened to one degree or another. So AI for me is another tool in our toolbox. And that tool really has the potential to give us the promise or the peril, depending on how we as a society and as individuals choose to use it. So what is AI? I know many people have heard about AI recently, particularly over the last 2 years with ChatGPT, and maybe more at home at UCSF with things like Versa, and we'll talk more about that at the end, towards the end of the presentation. But before that, some of the big name words and players in AI, before I think people even realized that it was a part of AI, were machine learning, natural language processing, deep learning, neural networks, robotics. And so we can think of AI as kind of an umbrella that encapsulates a lot of subcategories and subtools and algorithms and things that contribute to the goal of replicating human intelligence and human action. So some of the examples, like I said before, machine learning, neural networks, natural language processing, robotics, machine learning, where we're using sample data to train computer programs to recognize patterns based on different algorithms that we develop. Neural networks, computer systems designed specifically to imitate the way that neurons in the brain work together to address complex processes. Natural language processing, the ability to understand speech, as well as understand and analyze documents in similar ways that we do. And then robotics, more along the physical aspects of AI, where machines will be able to assist people with actual actions in tangible real life ways. You also think about artificial intelligence in terms of predictive analytics, with machine learning. Again, the text to speech. So not just how machines are able to interpret our speech, but also what we write down, but also being able to understand the intonations in our words when we're saying something or dictating to a machine. Some of you may have used the voice to text on your phone, or said something like, hey, this device, or okay, that device. I'm trying not to activate anybody's phones right now. But those tools, that action, fall within the category of artificial intelligence, understanding us as we speak in the same way that we would each other. In terms of image recognition to identify patterns or disease discovery in clinical imagery, developing expert systems to achieve complex tasks, optimizing our daily lives, and again, creating tools and robots in order to make our lives more efficient and do some of the work that we may not want to have to do ourselves. So what does AI look in terms of research? We've talked about it in the general sense and how it kind of like exists in the world, but what does it look like in terms of research? So we can use AI, and we are using AI, especially here at UCSF, in several different ways: to manage and analyze data, to connect and engage with people, to find and write various types of papers, and to develop and review proposals. So what are some of the advantages of AI in research? Why would we even want to use it? Some of the key advantages are the speed and efficiency. If anybody has dabbled in, say, ChatGPT and had it write a descriptive paragraph of something that you would normally, take you an hour to do, or even a descriptive paragraph about yourself, if you're famous enough online in order to have it be able to scour the internet and find a lot of information about you, or to summarize and distill that information, complex information, multiple sources of information, down to a more easily and quickly digestible form, such as bullets or short notes. For data analysis and pattern recognition, to analyze the vast amounts of data that we now have. We're collecting data on scales that are unheard of at this point, that never before we even imagined possible, where as individuals, we are feeding different companies and the world at large our data on a regular basis, and willingly so, where we are with our location data just by having our phone on and in our pocket. You know, what we enjoy, what we don't enjoy, who we're having a conversation with, who our family members are, who our friends are, how we work, what we work on, where we eat. All this is data that is collected constantly through our mobile devices, through our computers, through our searches, and all that has to go somewhere. And a lot of that is going to companies that also use our data and sell our data to other companies so that they can sell us stuff. And that's where in later presentations, we're going to get into how bias is generated, and then also some of the risks and challenges of AI. Some of the ways we're thinking about using AI in research here at UCSF is in personalizing medicine, in better understanding the nuances on an individual patient level. To date, we would get large swaths of data from big populations and calculate averages and run descriptive statistics on trends and regression lines to better understand what is the propensity for some health outcome, and then write that in as a factor in the standard of care. Well, when it comes to healthcare, as we all know, one size doesn't fit all, and the same can be said for health research as well. This is why tools like AI are going to make it better, potentially, for us to really find some of the more nuance in real time in individual patients' healthcare. Early disease detection. A lot of that in today's AI is being displayed in AI and image and pattern recognition. So being able to read, say, a MRI or some kind of clinical image that is meant to detect cancer or an anomaly in the lungs or something like that. And so it can be used in a way where the AI goes through all these images and through certain algorithmic adjustments can say, oh, this may be a cancerous disease, or this is a cancerous disease, and you may want to look at this. Or where the physician says, oh, I think this is, based on the AI, does the AI confirm? A lot of that may seem scary now because all this is new, for some exciting, for some kind of perilous, but definitely a direction that we're moving towards and research that's already being done at UCSF. And then another example is in drug discovery and development, understanding on a larger scale, before we put drugs out there, what are the potential drug-drug interactions and risk profiles of certain medications, finding out from large swaths of available data if there are patterns of health outcomes that hadn't been identified in the research literature yet that are popping up naturalistically in the general swath of data that we're sharing more regularly. So advantages, examples of that are IBM Watson and how that's been used for drug discovery, Google Health for medical imaging, predictive analytics for patient care. Right now, there's a pilot going on at UCSF that is taking notes for physicians by them ambiently having discussions with their patients. And the AI is listening in on those real conversations, writing it all up, and then providing a summary for the physician to then go over and check for any errors or flaws, add anything that's been missing, but essentially to save them time in the process of charting. And something for the future could be being for the AI to listen to that conversation, summarize what's going on, and from what has been said, already have in, say, a selective inbox for the physician, different medications that would be appropriate or different treatments that would be appropriate for that patient. And then the physician can then just go ahead and approve the course of treatment. So some of the disadvantages and challenges are data privacy and security. There's a lot of concerns around this, and particularly on a protected health data level. We already know that that protecting patients' health is challenging without the advent of these high throughput, very, very fast uh, computer processors being able to use all the data in various ways. But that concern elevates when certain types of data can be that we thought maybe was, say, anonymous. Well, at a certain level of computation, computers can figure out who is who based on certain levels of information at lower levels of or more anonymized levels of information than we would as humans and individuals. Bias in AI algorithms. So this is bias in AI algorithms is going to be a whole additional lecture that we're going to present later on this year, but it is a really big concern. We know that we already have a lot of challenges in the different health-related and social biases that many people from minority groups and from underserved communities already experience in their everyday life, but more particularly in healthcare. And so what we have also seen is that a lot of those biases can transfer into the way that AI processes information. And that can come in many different forms and develop for many different reasons. And we'll discuss more of those in the future. Then there's limitations in interpretability. So the AI really only knows what it's given and can only work off of the information that's given. This kind of ties back into a little bit of the bias thing, but also in terms of what information's given back. And so something that you may have heard of is the AI hallucinating. And this is where AI literally just makes it up if it doesn't have it. If you're saying you're asking for this answer and I don't have the exact right answer, sometimes the AI will just make it up and you can fact check it and you're like, that is just not true. So that's why we have to approach AI with a strong sense of caution. You know, we can be hopeful, but a strong sense of caution will really help us to prevent some of the perils of just trusting whatever it is that we get back from the AI and then applying that to real life challenges. Then there's the ethical concerns. Well, in terms of ethical concerns in general, it's whose data do we use it on? When do we use it? Is it okay to have AI do things that, may put other people at harm in either their business or their health and all this kind of stuff? What are the varying levels of risk? Now, AI in research and some of the ways that we're going to discuss using AI, some of the ethics around, say, using AI for paper or grant writing is, when do we cite it? Should we be using it to write our grants? How much of it can we have it do for us before it's no longer our work or we have to start giving that credit? How do we give that credit? What are some of the checks and balances that are necessary to make sure that we are not plagiarizing, that the information that the AI is pulling from isn't pulling from other proprietary sources? And then the cost of implementation. So there's always a cost with everything. Nothing in this world is genuinely free. A lot of us feel like social media is free, but really we pay with our data. And if you don't pay with your data, you pay with your pocket. And AI will be no different. So right now, because of the boom of AI, there are a lot of competing startups that are developing AI for a myriad of different applications and use cases. And so they need to get people to come in and start using their tools. So a lot of those are free. Now, the ones that are already popular, like the ChatGPT and other things like that, they have some of their basic level tools that are still free and available and very effective, but then some of their more advanced tools that can get really, really costly. And so for research, particularly if you want to develop a tool yourself based on a AI algorithm or a large language model, it's another term that we can discuss, there could be considerable costs. And so some of the disadvantages that we see are breaches in privacy and algorithmic bias. So how do we use AI in the research specifically? Well, we can use it to collect and process data, select and develop appropriate AI models for intervention or for research or tools for patient care or tools that help make things more efficient for different NGOs and community-based organizations. Train the models, evaluate and validate the results, implement findings into actual practice. Some examples of AI applications, well, natural language processing for electronic health record analysis. That's actually a part of my research. So my K research currently is looking at applying natural language processing to the clinical notes of patients who are currently diagnosed or have some Z code indicator of opioid use disorder. And part of the goal there is to understand what are some of the social determinants of health that are indicated within the clinical notes, common among that population, so that we can then build algorithms to predict or other patients who haven't been diagnosed with opioid use disorders, potential risk for opioid use disorder, and use that as a suggestive clinical decision support tool for physicians so that when they're considering their prescribing of pain therapy, they can know, they can have some kind of like information around what opioids or alternative analgesics would be appropriate for a patient with, said history. Also, image recognition for radiology and pathology. I mentioned that a little bit before in terms of looking for, say, a cancer or something in the lungs. This was already being applied a little bit when we had COVID to see if there were predictive analytics for screening COVID just by imagery. And this is when tests were hard to come by. For genomic analysis, for precision medicine, better discovery tools of what disease outcomes are more prevalent for certain genomes and for certain swaths of the population, or even down to the individual level. And then coding unstructured data, interviews, focus groups, and the like. So often we go through our focus groups and listen to all this conversation that's happening, and then we transcribe it, and then we comb through those transcriptions to see patterns of topics that come up regularly. And there will come a time, and that time is very, very soon, where you will literally just have an AI listening to that conversation and then summarizing what's happening, and then bringing up all the different topics or patterns of discussion, and potentially quantifying that in some kind of way, or helping the researcher to understand the qualitative nature of that content as well. So what are some AI platforms that we can use and look for or look to now? So for research, for AI platforms for research are things like TensorFlow and PyTorch, FastAI, H2O AI. A lot of these tools are designed specifically to look at clinical articles and using more research jargon in their large language model to understand some of those nuances outside of the larger large language models that use more common term language. There's also medical terms that in there that will aid in more health-oriented research or social-oriented research. And so it's really important that we check some of these out, and not these specific, you don't have to specifically check these ones out, but the point of this slide is to say that there are a myriad of different AI tools that are currently being developed right now, and a simple Google search will bring up a number of them for any specific research task. And it's really important to do your due diligence and read about those, read about where the data is coming from, what the cost of it's going to be, can it be used with any, what are the risks if you have it near any kind of PHI, and comparing it to other types of similar AI tools to just figure out which one is the best tool specifically for your research use case. Now, let's talk about some of the ways in which we may use AI for writing. And the reason why I want to focus on that is because right now, these are some of the tools that we have the most access to, readily available. We have ChatGPT and very similar tools, but now at UCSF, we have something called VersaChat, and I will help walk everybody on this call through the process of signing up for VersaChat if you haven't already done so, as well as having a discussion about some of the AI tools at UCSF. But how do we use AI in our research writing? So first, we want to define your research proposal. AI is not a magic wand. You really do have what you put into it you really do get out. There is a new term that has developed in the last year. It's now becoming an actual job. You know, one thing develops and it creates new categories of other things, and that is a prompt engineer or prompt engineering. And so prompt engineering is the skill of understanding how specifically to ask AI questions to get the most ideal response from them. And this isn't really uncommon from how we talk to each other. Often we will say something or use something in a turn of phrase or a colloquialism that one person may interpret in one way and another person may understand it another way. And we may have a communication breakdown, or what we're asking for may not be what we get back.
哎，我现在还好，怎么了？
And so you have to clearly define your research goals and objectives and aims before you even get started. Know what you want to go in and do. Be specific about your research question and the significance of it, because all these are going to be really important in the process of leveraging the AI in helping to give you a foundation of writing for you to build off of. And I really do want to encourage people to use AI as a building tool, as a starting place, rather than a do it all for me place. And as you will see, when you do use it, you really can't just leave it as is and just submit whatever you get back. You really do have to work on it and make it your own. Collect relevant data. So you want to collect your academic and research backgrounds for who is going to be a part of the research, your previous publications, potential collaborators, and information about the agency that you're representing and the agency that you're applying to. So you also want to choose an AI-powered tool that is meant specifically for the task. So we already use some very popular AI-powered tools to help us with our writing in general. Some of you may use the older version of the GPT large language model. Grammarly, I'm sure everybody's been hearing about this for years, and little did we know that it also leverages things that are related to or powered by AI. Pro writing aid, AI-powered content generators like pseudo-write, research proposal specific AI platforms are numerous. And so again, goes back to looking at all of the ones that are available and doing your research on these research artificial intelligence tools. Also, when drafting the proposal, you can use AI to generate an initial draft, not a whole draft. I really do recommend that you ask for something that's more bulleted, more succinct and synopsized, so that you can understand the picture of what your grant proposal could look like, and then inject yourself into it. Because right now, as it currently stands, AI is not reviewing your applications. Real life people and humans are reviewing your applications. And even though these AI are very, very good at mimicking human speech and how we would say things, what you will find is there's sometimes passion and personalization that's lost when you allow AI to do all the heavy lifting for you. So you can input your research ideas and objectives and related data and let the AI generate a preliminary document, but absolutely go in and make sure that that document is genuinely you. What I really recommend it mostly for is in the review and edit phase. So maybe you already have a grant that you have developed, and you keep sending it out, or there's sections that need some tweaking and all that kind of stuff. What AI is really great at is reviewing things and doing specific tasks. So you say, like, what are some of the action language that I have in here that I may want to diversify? Or what is some action language that I can include to make my research sound more compelling? Or can you give me some more examples of outcomes for this specific health challenge that are more up to date, that would better serve my hypothesis or my research aims? And you can really just say it like that. Provide the information from your grant, and then the paragraph or the section, and then it should be able to highlight some of those things depending on which tool you're using. And then ensure that whatever it's producing aligns with the guidelines for the institute or RFP or RFA or anything that you're applying to, that it follows the clear structure of what a grant should look like, and that it's doing the basic things, or that it's checking on you and making sure that you've hit all of the basic check marks that are just required to submit that grant. And then the last two things, or maybe not actually the last two things, almost done now. Customize and tailor. Fit the specific requirements of the agency, address their mission, priorities, and evaluation criteria, and make your proposal unique and tailored to the opportunity. Make sure that it knows what your task is in writing this grant and responding to a RFA, so that it can look to make sure that you followed that, or that when it's trying to give you a base foundation, it starts on that foot. And then lastly, seek peer review. Share your proposal with colleagues and mentors and peers and get feedback and suggestions for improvement. Do not leave it up to the AI. The traditional ways that we have been making sure that our grants and our papers are strong and robust still are the best ways. Humans that understand how other humans think and speak and feel are always going to be our best tools for assessment and nuance and thinking outside of the box. So also use the AI to optimize for impact, compliance check, make sure you're got all your formatting, optimize for impact, make sure your language and style is strong, compliance check, make sure that your formatting, your citation styles, all those guidelines are done correctly. And then a final review to make sure that you've checked all the boxes and that is complete. These are all the steps that we normally have gone through in our normal grant writing process. And we're just using AI to help speed that process along, not throwing away all the great skills and all the great resources that we've taken so long to cultivate and develop and build up in our colleagues and in each other. So I'm going to go on. So in conclusion, the key points that I want you to take away from this are AI offers significant advantages in research, speed, efficiency, a good starting point, and a tool for reviewing either what you already have done or what you're currently doing, and that there are many real ethical challenges around bias and intellectual property, and currently how that can impact minority communities or underserved populations, and then challenges around intellectual property and plagiarism and all that kind of stuff. But ultimately, it still is just another tool in our toolbox. So the other thing that I want to do is take you on a brief little overview journey of AI at UCSF as a resource. So I invite you to go to ai.ucsf.edu. It's where I'll go, and then we'll have a specialist in AI platforms at UCSF come in and give a lecture later on this year. But then also, I'm going to be giving another lecture in 2 months in April on bias in AI, covering real world patterns of health inequity and discrimination and how that contributes to bias. How the way that we sample and collect our data contributes to bias, how the way we apply these AI systems contribute to bias, and the way that AI is designed contributes to bias. Everyone is on ai.ucsf.edu. And really, I just wanted to introduce everyone to this page. This is where UCSF is talking about all of the efforts towards artificial intelligence that are currently being undergone. Definitely check out the About AI at UCSF. One of the things that you may find about this page is it is behind a protected wall. So either you need to be on the network or VP'd in order to see some of these AI pages and resources and tools. And so that is a requirement. But here you'll find about some of the latest and greatest that's going on in terms of AI in research, and AI that's being applied to clinical care within UCSF Health. The different articles and processes and policies that have been developed to make sure that AI is safe and trustworthy at UCSF, which is why we come up with some of our own tools, such as Versa and HiPAC and Nebula and other UCSF tools for data analysis, exploration, and research. And then you can go in and explore and see various types of research studies and publications and news articles about how people are already applying some of these tools. So going into platforms, tools, and research, there's a lot of different things that we have that are tools for big data and high computation and informatics. But what I wanted to at least give you guys an introduction to and lead you to is VersaChat and the VersaChat API, which is our generative AI platform here at UCSF that's available to you. The nuances between the two are VersaChat is more of a ChatGPT-like interface that allows you to ask questions in a text format, and from the large language model from which our information is derived, you can get back nuanced answers. And depending on how much time we have left in our discussion, I could give an example of that. But then the API is the actual application interface and program that you can then leverage and build off of for a specific research purpose. So for instance, there is a tool called Liversa that's using AI to address challenges around liver disease. But you can learn more about Versa by clicking there, or you can request access now. And I'll just show you really quickly what the access request form looks like. So if you want to request access to VersaChat or the VersaChat API, and there is a waiting list for these tools, so some of you may get access sooner than others, but you can also ask for consultations. And as we said before, everything comes at a price. So some things are free, but some of the things that you really might be excited for using comes at a price. But in any case, so when I went through, I clicked plus for Versa Chat. I clicked plus for Versa API to gain access to that because I want to use that as a new tool to look at some of the clinical text that we're analyzing using more traditional natural language processing tools. What will we get if we use large language models? And then particularly when you hit VersaChat, it'll then let you know that things come with a cost. And so right now, the Versa API usage costs over $200 per month and are billed to the user's account. And so you already have to provide a charge string for that and sign saying that you agree to pay if you use it. Then there's an indication of what you want to use it for. You click those different options. And then here you can put in your name and your email address, and then also request access for various team members as well, which would be necessary for people who have research teams. Then you put in your department affiliation, and then a description of your use case for either VersaChat or the Versa API. And then, of course, because we're concerned about health data and making sure that we're responsible and protecting it, it wants to know if you will be using any kind of protected data that needs IRB approval or that has already been IRB approved. So say no. If you say yes, it will then ask you for your IRB number if you already have one. And then you hit submit, and that's it. Additionally to this, on that previous page was a request for a consultation. So you're like, well, I don't know how to even get started. Well, everyone is offered a free 1-hour consultation from the UCSF AI team to discuss how to gain access, what you might be able to use it for, if it applies to your research use case, or how much it will cost. And so I want to go ahead and end it there and start taking questions.
Thank you, Will. This is just a fantastic introduction to AI and a number of the issues, and the Versa capacity building also feels like a really nice bonus. So thank you for showing that to us as well. So without further ado, does anybody have any questions for Will? I see Kim, your hand is raised.
Just really quickly, thank you so much, Will. This is a little mind-blowing. Still feeling like this is really perilous journey, but thank you. I feel much better informed. With the Versa API $200 a month charge, are you charged if you do not use it during a particular month?
No, I think from my understanding, you are only charged when you are using it in some kind of way. I actually requested access, and I'm still on the waiting list to gain access, so I won't know that in practice. But I think the most important thing is to request access and then also request a consultation. I recommend requesting access before consultation because requesting access doesn't cost you anything.
Right, thank you.
Yeah, Kim, if you click on the pricing link, it's interesting. It looks like it's saying UCSF is providing a $200 monthly credit for API use, and then it says usage over the $200 a month allowance will be recharged back to the user each month.
Yes.
Was that only for 2023 or is it 2024 too?
From my understanding,
question.
it should be for 2024 as well.
Yeah.
When I had my consultation, that's the impression that I got. I didn't ask that question specifically, but in how we talked about the research going forward and how that price structure would be, we're in 2024, so I didn't sound like they were talking about past tense when I was talking future forward about my own research.
Yeah, they even give you a formula at the bottom to estimate the cost, which I guess you could always put
Oh,
into
another
the
3 months.
chat.
It's
Yeah.
saying, okay. So for at least through March, at least through March.
Well, I have a question for the group. Has anybody used AI yet? Who's used AI? Any form of artificial intelligence?
Hi, this is Matt Price. We've used AI in some of we teach a course under ITAPS for manuscript writing for scholars from lower middle income classes. And this is a topic we've brought up because many of our scholars are maybe non-native English speakers. And so we've asked them to help, to use AI to help them with grammar, spelling, and sometimes to get ideas, but to be extremely careful with it. Don't have it write your papers yourself. But we're really wrestling with this because a lot of our scholars struggle with English. So that's what we've used it for.
I think you bring up an excellent use case in the sense that we do have brilliant scholars for whom English is not their first language, who they're international, and expressing the breadth of their brilliance can be hampered by the overall mastery of English specifically. And so AI can be a tool that is very helpful in that. And one of the things that a student of mine, a graduate student of mine, actually said in their application and use of AI. So they were using AI for programming to help them with writing certain code, to look over their code and things like that. And they said in using the AI, they were learning what mistakes they were making. It was pointing out the mistakes for them. And so that when they would go back to write the code and check the code and all that kind of stuff, they knew not to make those same mistakes. We often learn as humans more quickly from what we're told not to do or how we're told to do something from when we learn. Sometimes we learn faster from when we do something wrong. And then we remember, oh, I did that wrong. I need to not do that again. It's more salient sometimes. Any other questions or comments?
There's just a few comments in the chat that folks using it to help with programming. And again, this is Matt, and I used it to help me with Stata, and it made a mistake. It invented a code, or a command rather, that doesn't exist in the Stata language. So that was very interesting. This was months ago when it was a little more new, and I think hallucinations were a little more common.
Yeah, hallucinations are a real thing. The hope is that they will become less common as the AI continues to get better and learn, but we have to be aware of them and diligent to make sure that our foundational knowledge is where it needs to be so that we can recognize those hallucinations, or that we do the exact same things that we're used to doing by having other people review our work to see if they catch anything that we don't. We've all had the experience of, you read something 10 times, and by the 10th time, you're just reading over mistakes because your brain is already like correcting the mistakes as you're reading it, and you need another fresh pair of eyes to catch the mistakes that you're missing. And so either you can use a human set of fresh pair of eyes to help you identify your own mistakes or where the AI may have made mistakes, or you can use the AI as a fresh pair of eyes to help identify where you may have made a mistake or something that has been missed. So this bidirectional application of AI is something that people should also seek to practice. One of the things that we touched upon and that we're going to go into much more depth in our future talk is bias in AI. And this is a huge concern. Some of the stories that are provided are of facial recognition artificial intelligence that is misidentifying individuals of color as criminals, and then those people are being detained by the police because the police are leaning on these tools to make accurate assessments, and then finding out later, after the harm has already been done, that the AI got it wrong. And then so how does that happen? And in what ways does bias get put into AI? What are some of the ways that that people can think of, that we can think of, that bias gets into AI?
Just the basic idiosyncrasies of spoken word. I mean, I assume AI assigns meaning to words based on Webster Dictionary, right? And so our use of the language, though, is often idiosyncratic. So if we're in, part of the reason why you're doing this talk, Will, is because we talked in our methods core about the creepy nature of having AI Otter helping to record meeting notes in Zoom meetings. And so some people were not comfortable with it because they don't want to be misrepresented in what they say during a project meeting. And so I think the bias is just, it's the potential for it is always there. It's always
definitely always there with the current level of ways that we are thinking about addressing bias and the current types of data and quality of data that we're using. One example is if you ask one of these large language models like ChatGPT to tell you a story about a doctor and a nurse, and don't give them any gender, or tell you a love story about a doctor and a nurse and don't provide any gender. Now, we can guess who would have what, when it's writing that story, what gender it will likely assign to the doctor and what gender it would likely assign to the nurse. And that could be entered in through some of the algorithms and the purpose for why that GPT was developed, why that large, and where the data from that large language model comes from. That could be based on, again, the data that it's pulling from, and if it's pulling from mostly sources where it's describing doctors as male and nurses as female, then the algorithms that literally are just equations that say the likelihood of the next word should be this, and therefore I'm going to put this word. It's going to say the likelihood of the pronoun to precede a discussion about a doctor is he, or vice versa for a nurse is she. And so there are different ways that that can be brought in. You could also think about how that may play out if it wants to describe racial nuance in that storytelling, and how it would describe like what they would look like and what their children would look like, or some of the challenges around the environment and that they may face based on what a certain status of person may experience, or a certain type of person may experience. And the same is true for artificial intelligence that generates photo images as well.
I kind of wonder if some of the bias is also coming out in the hallucinations. It makes me wonder, you know, if somehow it got programmed to never be able to say, I don't know the answer. And if
Yeah,
that is, you know, the data out there is that's a more successful approach, is just to BS your way rather than say you don't know, admit to not knowing something.
well, the funny thing that you bring up, Judy, is that the I don't know had to be programmed in when ChatGPT and AI first exploded onto the scene. It was providing answers. It was saying a lot of wild stuff that was entertaining for many people and scary for many people as well. And so there actually had to be programming to say, if this specific question is asked, if these words come up, then you need to say, I don't know, or
You don't know.
you need to provide a huge disclaimer, which I think people who've used any of these tools are familiar with or have seen, where it says, I am just AI. Please don't take me seriously because I don't want you to sue the company that made me. And therefore, I could potentially be wrong. Check all your other sources, but this is what I think now. And so now that is a very common phrase that is included either at the beginning or the end of whatever the AI is providing for you.
That was my question about just your thoughts and recommendations around disclaimers. I've been just on the receiving end a couple of times of AI generated text. And one of the times it sort of had so many errors, I assume it was AI. It had so many errors that it kind of, you know, subconsciously made me adjust my opinion of the writer. And then another time it was coming from my son, who's now a college student, and I've been, you know, he's always been handing me stuff to, you know, look at it and give him feedback. And I was doing it with the tenderness that a parent would do. And then he told me half of it was AI. And I went, whoa, really? Like, I can't believe I was giving so much care to something that was AI generated.
Absolutely.
But your thoughts about like what should be a standard? Should people use as a standard to say this was AI generated?
Well, I mean, this.
Yes. Yes, I put in the chat. I'm pushing for attribution.
I saw that.
AI is used at any point.
I saw that, Edwin. But this is the funny thing is, I was watching/listening to a podcast on YouTube, and they were having a debate about what is a picture? Does a photo really exist anymore? since now we're using AI and have been for some time now to modify and improve or change things that we find, undesirable about certain images. And first it starts off as like, okay, there's somebody tried to photobomb this picture, I can erase them out and now it's a great picture. Or the new tool that Google has is face swap, where you can take a burst of different pictures and it will allow you to take a picture of your kid smiling in this one and move it to the one where they're not smiling because everybody's smiling in this one and nobody's smiling in the one that it's smiling in, So it's like, darn it, I can't get the right picture, but I can take the good elements from these pictures and composite them into this image. And so it's like, was that real? Did that really happen? And then we see everybody making AI generated images and fantasy images of themselves and posting them on Instagram. And then one of the ways that companies are trying to address saying that this is AI generated is by including a little watermark at the bottom corner that has the star twinkle emoji. And that's supposed to be an indication that this has been altered in some way by AI. However, as the podcast then demonstrated, you can then ask the AI to erase the to erase the image, the watermark, which it will do because it knows how to identify stuff and remove it from a picture. And then all of a sudden, nobody knows that it was AI generated. But Edwin's right. There's a lot of discussion going on right now around attribution and transparency around the use of AI. But then we also have to identify where the goalpost is, because AI is everywhere around us. We've been using it and engaging with it for years before ChatGPT came around. It just really got great with GPT processing technology. And so we know that it's been around for a long time because we know that things like the smart cars that are currently driving around the streets of San Francisco exist, and that they have to make complicated, nuanced, human-like decisions all the time, completely unmanned. We know that even the background, this blur background that I'm currently using right now, has to understand what's me and what is actually a background, where my shoulders are, where my head is. All these different elements are the AI thinking in real time, technology thinking in real time, the same way that we would in identifying different parts of myself or the physical world around us, and then making decisions based on that information and knowledge. And we're feeding data every single day.
Thank you so much, Will. We are so lucky to have you, and this is great. I'm really looking forward to the bias talk as well. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
The hope is that we will provide more in-depth and nuanced presentations in the future that we're working on. Also working on some different courses in AI, ethics, responsibility, attribution, just like Edwin said, as well as applications, getting your hands dirty with real life tools and applying them to your research, having consultations for applying AI research just the same way that we provide consultations at the Division of Prevention Science for people who are doing community-based research or research with actual patients and human beings. And a lot of this is so new and there's so much of it that we just have to break it up. And so what I hope is that you gather a foundational understanding of what AI is, what it looks like, how it kind of, how we kind of live amongst it already in our world, and interact with it on a day-to-day basis, and then a beginning foundation of how we might apply it to our research.
I think you've more than met that objective. I think this was tremendous. I echo Edwin's gratitude. This is amazing, and really looking forward to learning more in the next chapter. You mentioned earlier you had a poll. Did you want to deploy a poll, Will, or?
Well, I did the poll more organically.
Oh,
So
more,
originally
okay.
it was the Promise
Got it.
Matera poll. But when I got into the room, I wasn't able to pull my poll from my account to this one. So we just did the digital old-fashioned of hands up, hands down. It's always a classic. It works.
Totally.
Versa, make me a quick Zoom poll.
and it will do that. Actually, you know what? We have a few more minutes. I'm gonna I'm gonna pull up Versa so that you guys can see Versa chat. I'll pull up Versa chat so you guys can kind of see what that looks like. Since many of you probably have already submitted your applications to try out Versa chat, and as I do that, I'll tell you a quick story of a presentation that was given at the Department of Medicine leadership retreat. And I won't be able to do it any justice, but it was applying AI in administration. And it was a wonderful and fun presentation where the administrator in real time, using their phone and their voice-to-text ChatGPT AI app, was talking to the ChatGPT algorithm and asking it to help solve common day administrative problems. It said, hey, and Dr. Bob Wachter was there. And so the person used Dr. Bob Wachter as a fun example, but said, hey, ChatGPT, I just got a question, an email from Dr. Wachter, and he wants to know, X, Y, and Z, and how can you write a response that hits these different points, and then also
all it responds with is no. It's very simple programming. Hey, can you do this? No.
Well, honestly, I may have them come for our future ones to do the example. It was not just entertaining, it was very, very impressive how they were applying it to respond to emails, to organize different sources of information, to help them develop, spreadsheets, to do it in either a long form, succinct form, bulleted way, it was a myriad of different ways that they said this is how we use ChatGPT to make our administrative life easier. And so that was a really great presentation as well that I think a lot of people can benefit from. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen in our last 10 minutes together. Okay, so this is UCSF's Versa Chat. You can think of it very similarly to ChatGPT. The way that I got here is simply by typing in versa.ucsf.edu after you've submitted your application and been granted approval. Usually for Versa Chat, approval comes relatively quickly. I was able to log in and use Versa Chat within the day, but for others, it may take up to 1 to 2 weeks to gain access to that. It uses an AI data source that I believe was developed by Microsoft. Don't quote me on that. I am not one of the leaders of the development of VersaChat, but I have used it before, and it'll start you off on GPT 3.5, but has these various levels of GPT. And as you use them, you will see that there is some diversity in the way, not diversity, some differences in the way that it responds. Usually very similarly, but as you go up in GPT level, it does get better, and the response is more detailed and nuanced. One thing that you will experience when you're using this is that I think there's some, I don't know this for a fact, but from my experience, I think there's some clocking going on that behind it. And by that, I mean that they are reducing the speed at which how much processing can be done for the higher GPT, since most people will probably use that. So that one actually just takes longer. I don't know if it's an actual affect of a more complex GPT model, but it's always under a minute, but it seems to always be over 30 seconds, as opposed to GPT 3.5, which is noticeably faster. So they say you can answer any number of questions, like, tell me about UCSF. What is your name? Are you related to UCSF? How to handle heartburn, UCSF dental associations. Now, when I was first playing around with this, I was sitting next to my boyfriend and partner, and he is an ER doctor, and he was ready to give me a hard challenge for Versa. And so he was like, let's throw in some shorthand on that. And so he would say something, and I won't be doing it justice because I am not a medical physician, but he would say something like, 34F has back and side pain, pain radiates and moves, no
Rebound.
vomiting, or no, we'll say no vomiting, and we'll stay there. What are some possible diagnoses and treatments? Or we'll say diagnoses. We'll start there.
Give me the differential.
Yes, basically. Well, let's put that in there. Provide differential. And so you can see this as thinking, and then it comes up with some of these. Now, immediately, I want to draw your attention, because I know everybody's already going to start reading all the different things: muscle strain, kidney stones, urinary tract infections, all that kind of stuff. But I want to draw your attention down to the bottom. It's important to keep in mind that these are just a few potential cases, and a doctor would need to evaluate the individual's medical history, perform a physical exam, potentially order additional tests to determine the exact cause of symptoms. And so this is always going to pop up, or something of the like, typically when you use any kind of GPT tool, because you want to make sure, and really its primary purpose is liability, but it also is a good reminder for us to remember that GPTs can hallucinate, that they may not be accurate, that they may not get everything that is the case. So I'm going to take that exact same sentence, so you can kind of glance at how much information it's provided now, and I'm going to put it back in, but I'm going to turn it on to GPT-4 Turbo. And then we will submit. So now you can see that it's thinking. Within 10 to 20 seconds, it had already given us the answer that it provided when we were on GPT 3.5. As you can see, it's taking a little bit longer with Turbo. Like I said, it always takes approximately under a minute. And I do think it's, and it says, please be patient. It will always say, please be patient. And this could be an affect of the size of the language model, of the use of the language model, if it's in high use, or that it just could be clocked to keep resources from being overexerted. But as you can see, this is slightly different, right? So a more nuanced, bigger language model, large language model, GPT, and it gives a bit more nuance. So even the way that it starts, right, based on the information provided, there are several possible cases for back end side pain with radiating and shifting symptoms. However, please note that I am AI language model and not a healthcare professional, so it's important to consult with your doctor for a proper diagnosis. That being said, here are a few of the potential differentials to consider. Now, when we put that same thing in and we use Turbo, now it says, as a language model, I can offer a list of potential differential diagnoses for a 34-year-old female who presents with back and side pain where the pain radiates and moves without vomiting. However, an actual diagnosis would require a thorough clinical examination. Here are some conditions to consider. And it even gives us more conditions that you can consider. And again, then it gives you it is vital for the individual to seek medical attention to obtain an accurate diagnosis and appropriate treatment. A healthcare provider may need to perform diagnosis tests such as blood tests, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then you can say, provide treatment. Treatment. So this was just a fun thing that we were kind of doing before, but also this is just a large language model, very similar to ChatGPT, that is just specifically used for UCSF. Why do we have our own large language model? Because we have sandboxed it away that our ChatGPT Versa API can actually be used with protected health information. And the more nuances of that, I'll have the developers discuss in a future presentation. But we want to make sure that we have our own sandbox to make sure that we have a responsible environment for our health professionals to use. From what I understand, you do not use PHI on Versa Chat, but you will be able to use it when you gain access to the Versa API. All this should be discussed within your consultation. But again, it breaks down all the different diagnoses that it gave us, and then treatments for those illnesses. So like that. Also, like ChatGPT, if you ask it to tell you a story, a short story about a doctor and nurse that fall in love. It will do that as well. It'll tell you about dragons and all that other kind of stuff, and the whole gambit. So it's not just simply based off of the language that's used within a clinical context, but it's designed to take the clinical context into greater consideration when we use it here at UCSF. So as you can see, we don't really have any more time, and we have to let you go. But as you can see, it can generate a story. It says Olivia, with years of experience in cardiac unit, was the nurse everyone relied on. Ethan, a cardiologist, was a new immersive general and quick made himself into an internet. So even there, you have elements that we were talking about the biases of who gets what role in a love story between certain types of professions. Okay, so thank you everyone for participating and listening to my talk.
Thank you. This was fantastic. We definitely look forward to future installments with more details from the developers and others on this. This is really exciting, lots of promise, but also you need to know a lot to use it responsibly and optimally. So really appreciate you guiding us and orienting us towards that objective. Thank you again. It's exciting.